we are here to conduct a training on climate smart agriculture, and Mr. Maxime is the person that will do that proceeding in terms of what it is to expect. So without any further ado, Steve, I turn it over to you.
My name is Steve Maxime, and I'm here for 3 reasons. Everybody with me? Can you hear me? Yeah. We're here for 3 reasons. We're here to have fun. Most important, we're here to have fun. We're here to learn a little bit about this climate smart agriculture thing. And third, and often most important, we're here because we have lunch. We're going to get lunch. We are definitely going to get lunch. Definitely. Right, Mr. Edwards, right. Yeah. So, I am particularly interested in 4-H because I used to be a 4-H member when I was 11, right? Between 11 and 16. And I joined 4-H, as I explained to some of the students in the other parishes, because it had a really cool badge, and I was going to a mixed school, you know, boys and girls. So anything that would make me look like this had a little more swag, I was interested in that. But I soon found out that 4-H is more than just, let's come out of the 4-H is more than just a cool badge and a cool bandana, right? 4-H is about using your head, your heart, your hands, and your health to improve life, literally. That's what it is. That's what it's all about, right? So by joining 4-H, you have made the very first step into what I feel will be one of the best decisions you ever made in your life. So here why we're here today. You joined 4-H for whatever reason, and you're part of the 4-H movement. So you join a movement that has members all over the world, right? And as I said, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life was to join 4-H. What did I get out of it? I found out all about agriculture, how I can feed myself, how I can feed my family, how you can make a decent living out of agriculture. So while we don't have enough time to talk about all of that today, we're here to talk about something called climate smart agriculture. Have you heard about that? No. Great. So we're starting fresh. So this climate smart agriculture thing is about how do you produce plants and animals given all this talk about climate change. You've heard about climate change, right? Yes. Right. So before we could talk about climate smart agriculture, I need to spend a couple of minutes with you just explaining some things, right? For the teachers, for Kenley, and for all the other people. This climate change thing has to do with something called global warming. So I'm going to take it nice and slow. Stop me. This is not school, eh? Remember, we get a chance to come outside. We having fun. We're going to get lunch. Right. We are going to get lunch. This is the first bunch of kids that are not excited about that. I'm the only person excited about lunch. I only here because of the luncheon, right? If they didn't have lunch, I don't come in. All right. So all this talk about climate change has to do with this thing called global warming, which I'm going to try and explain to you in a little bit. So there you go. All right, everybody write down the name for lunch and thing already? Good. So imagine inside that car, one of those cars across there. Imagine it's hot sun, right? And you open a car door in the hot sun, especially if the car doesn't have tint, right? Is it hotter inside the car or outside? It's hotter inside, right? Everybody realize that, right? I mean, that's stress. If you don't have a heavy tint like some people, right? If you don't have a heavy tint, when you go into that car, it's going to be hotter than outside. Everybody agree with me? Yes. The busman, everybody agree with me, right? Here why? The sun heat and that sunlight is coming through the glass. Everybody still with me, right? It's coming through the glass, warming up the inside of the car. Yeah? But the heat is also being reflected back out. But it doesn't come out of the car as easily as it goes in. So what happens is that inside the car becomes a lot hotter. Let me run that by you again. You have the car, just like that down there. sunlight coming in, warming up inside the car, the heat is coming back out. You sure you're with me? You making sense? Yeah. Why I think my boy have any shades and things because that's like between the eyes, vision improving. Excellent. So as the sun's rays goes through the glass, it's heating up inside the car, right? But that heat isn't coming back out as fast as it went in. So what the glass is doing, the glass is sort of trapping the heat inside the car. Everybody still with me? Yes. Nice, good. See, people still not in there, but yes. So that effect, that operation, that thing is similar to what happens when people have a greenhouse. Now, those of you with relatives in England and in the States and so, you realize that they sometimes have a glass house next to their apartment or their house where they're renting or whatever, right? You know why? Because they want to use that glass house to plant the little hibiscus, the little croton, things that they're accustomed to in Grenada, right? When they go and live in the cold. Because when they go and live in the cold, when they go and live in places in the winter, they don't get as much heat to grow those kinds of plants, right? Still with me? Still making sense? Okay. So that house they make out of glass is referred to as a greenhouse. It's called a greenhouse because you can grow green plants and so inside of it. So what that greenhouse does is it traps the heat. Listen to me. It traps the heat so that it can grow plants that will normally grow in our condition. Tropical plants. Still with me, right? Nice. So what has been happening to us globally, in other words, the entire globe, you know, the globe world is supposed to be like a globe, is that you have that same effect, that same greenhouse effect. In other words, there are gases in the air that act in just like the glass in the car. So that there are gases out there, right, you can't see, that are trapping the heat around the globe. And because this heat is being trapped around the globe or around the whole world, that's what they're referring to as global warming. Let me repeat it again, going slowly. I lose anybody when I talk about the car being hotter? Everybody understands that, right? Yes. With the glass up, the car is hotter. So the glass is what is really keeping the heat inside the car, right? I'm saying that there are gases out there that acting just like the glass, right? And it's keeping heat on this planet, this globe that we're living on, right? Earth. Still with me? Teachers? You still with me? Right, okay. So, this global warming thing, this effect, the fact that you have these gases acting like a greenhouse gas, is what is responsible for global warming. So, these gases, there are all kinds of gases that have this effect, right? That have this greenhouse effect. But the greenhouse gases that we're most concerned about is something called carbon dioxide. You all have heard about carbon dioxide. You know that plants give out carbon dioxide, taking oxygen, etc. Right. What has happened to us meaning all people all over the world, is that we have been burning, listen to me carefully, we have been burning fuel, gas, diesel, your rubis and your salt, cooking gas and so. And by burning all these gases, we are producing more carbon dioxide. Everybody still with me? Anybody doesn't see that? Right. Doesn't understand that? Already worried about standing so close to the edge. Yeah. So, it's not very complicated. A couple things you have to get straight. That there are these gases called greenhouse gases, and the gases acting just like the glass that keeping the heat on the globe, on the world, right? And that is what is responsible for global warming. Let me run it one more time. As I said, this is crucial. If you don't understand, stop me, please. There's this global warming thing that is causing the earth to be warmer. That's the main point you have to get out of all that. So all I will talk just now was to explain why there's something called global warming. And the only reason I spend that time talking about that is because that is how you get to explain climate change. Because climate change is about global warming. So if you understand that fact that there are these gases out there that causing the earth to be warmer, then you'll understand why we need to do climate smart agriculture. Because this climate change thing is affecting everything we do. Let me run that by you quickly in 6 steps. If we agree that the place is now a lot hotter, the entire globe, right? That's why we call it global warming. This global warming thing is what is responsible for this increased heat, right? If the earth is warming up, then it kind of makes sense that if you imagine water in the earth or on the ocean heating up, what happens when you heat water in a pot?
It boils to gas.
Take a note of this. This youngster here, you're in line for something big. I explain to you what it is afterwards. As you heat up all that water, it turns into steam, right? Right? And that steam goes up and forms.
Clouds.
Hey. But we wasting time here now. You all could be conducting this. I thought I experienced something in the bay. You know what I'm talking about already. Of course, it forms all these clouds, right? And then when it gets to a particular temperature or a particular height, the water condenses. Jeez, I mean, everybody on the ball here, you know. I mean, we're only talking about it, you know, we're experiencing it, right? Because the same rain we're talking about is falling on me right now. So that with the increased temperature on the earth, you have a lot more of this, what's that called? Evaporation. This is a secondary school or primary school? This is a primary school? Well, you do easy. No, man, seriously. Extra. Miss and I on the same wavelength. Miss and I thinking about lunch already, you know. That's what motivates me, you know. Yeah, so here what's happened. With this global warming thing, you have a lot more evaporation, right? A lot more cloud formation, a lot more condensation, and a lot more rain. So that's the first part of the story. So if we are going to survive in a time with a lot more rain in some places, right, then it means the agriculture is going to have to change. We're going to talk about that a little later. So that's the first step. The first step is that you could have more rain, and because you have more heat and more rain, as with most things, if you have more rain in one place, it might mean that you have less rain somewhere else, and then you're talking about drought. You know, drought is when you don't have enough. You don't have enough water. You have to come and start next to me. Anyhow, so that's the first step in the story. So why we are talking about climate smart agriculture is because we know that there are going to be problems with water. Either we're going to have too much sometimes, or we're going to have too little sometimes, like in a drought. So that's the first step in the 6. All right? So we explain the extra rain. But just imagine that if the whole globe is warming up, that means the earth and the sea warming up as well. You know? Say that seawater is getting hotter. What do you think is going to happen to all the ice? Oh, by the way, when you talk about the globe, this planet of ours, there are 2 poles on the globe, and they're covered with ice. Right? Is what they call it. If you think I'm going to share my salary with you, you're very mistaken. If you feel you're going to come here and show me up, right? Oh, by the way, I had planned it that way. I planned it so that he will know everything already, right? So don't feel that, but you do easy. You do easy, right? Yeah, so seriously, what is happening is that you have these polar ice caps. That's what they refer to, right? At both poles, you have all of this ice. Imagine my man come prepared with everything, you know. He come prepared with cool water too, you know, right? I'm going to use this as an example. Imagine this container full of water, right? That's like the oceans. Imagine 2 big blocks of ice on top of this container. Everybody still with me?
Yes, sir.
What happens if the temperature increases?
The ice will melt.
I really wasted my time here.
And the sea level get to increases cause every
I think I'm
planet
not a ban you. I mean, I am so impressed. Look that. In 2 minutes, what I take all them years in university to play a learning, in 2 minutes, you get a better explanation that I could ever give you. That I could ever give you. That is what is responsible for sea level rise. Listen to me again. The heat, increased heat, polar ice caps melting, it comes as if the oceans overflowing literally. So that's the second one already, right? So we explain the rain and the drought. We explain the sea level rise. Now, that should have been enough to keep us worried. We have more going on than that. Apart from the sea level rise, the rain, the drought, the oceans warming up. And the oceans warming up, you're also getting a change in current. You know that you have ocean currents, right? And a change in breezes, right? The winds are changing. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of Sahara dust. You know that we get Sahara.
Yes, sir. From volcano.
I think you're just trying to destroy my ego, you know. Man. I came here, you know, I figured, I come from Montreal and I'm so bright and thing, but apparently I ain't as bright as I thought, right? Yet, of course, so all the Sahara dust and so, the wind patterns are changing. And we found out how serious that is when La Soufrière erupted. Remember when La Soufrière erupted last year? Yes. And everybody with black cars. Everybody was bright enough to have a black car, right? Every morning you get up, you still see ash on top of your car, right? Yes. Some of us who are plenty brighter bought a brown car, right? So that whether you have dust or you don't have dust, it didn't really matter to me, you know. I ain't washing no car every day, right? But the people with black cars found out. So that the wind patterns are changing. And with those wind patterns changing, guess what is happening? All kind of these new diseases and pests. But miss and all, and everybody here to show me up, you know, right? Miss and all nodding and say, well, we don't know that already. You had to come from quite Montreal to tell me that, you know what I mean? But no, but seriously, the wind patterns are changing. So you have a whole set of new pests and diseases and things can be circulated now because of climate change. So you see why we had to make the agriculture a little different? Because we had to face the water problem, the sea level rise. Oh, by the way, the sea level rise, you know what that means? For people who are living
Close to the beach.
salt water intrusion. In other words, you know that if you dig anywhere on the earth, right? Anywhere, you're supposed to exactly. But if you're if you're on a flat place, right, on a flat island like Antigua, Barbados, when they try to dig for water, right? Dig a well, they get no water, but it's mixed with salt water. It mixed with salt water because of the salt water intrusion. That's another big one. You didn't hear about that one before?
Yeah.
All right. I feel a little good now. You know. At least it was worth the drive then. So at least if you only learn one thing today, there's a big term called saltwater intrusion. And it's only Mr. Maxime knew that one. Take that, right? Or you can take that. Yeah. So this seawater intrusion is going to affect the water that you need for agriculture if you're living on a flat place. Right? So that's another one.
And to drink.
And to drink too, yeah, but we're talking about to feed your plants. You know you couldn't take seawater and just straight on your plants, right? You'll kill it. Exactly, right? So we know we need fresh water to do that. So wait now, by the way, if seawater does kill plants, how all them coconut trees growing by the beach? All them coconut trees on the beach. And them sea almond and thing.
Because they can't see someone, they could go by the beach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, agreed. Because they're adapted to it. In other words, they're accustomed. It's like how some people could get up in the morning and bathe with rainwater in a drum, right?
They're accustomed with the seawater.
They're adapted to it. It's the same way that, you know, if I try a stunt like that, right? As much as I like to go about the place being so strong and all that, right? If I try to bathe with water from a drum 4 o'clock in the morning, hospital see me, you know, right? I go there. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I have my grandparents and things, they come and they bathe in cool water that early morning and they hear me and them coughing, right? So that tells you that they adapted. Same way the plants adapted to those conditions too. So we deal with saltwater intrusion, we deal with rain and drought, we deal with the ocean warming up. And with the ocean warming up too, it's going to affect the coral. And if you affect the corals, you affect the fish. Because the fish need the coral to spawn and so. And that, your whole fisheries everything in Guava and Victoria going to close down, right? Because you won't have as much fish in the sea again. So you see how this climate change thing important, right? Everybody still with me? Yeah. Right. So that why we need a climate smart agriculture. We need an agriculture that could deal with climate change. That's basically what climate smart agriculture is. How do you deal with climate change? By doing certain things differently. And we have some excellent examples here. We're going to see some examples here and at your farm too, right? Right? So we're going to see what farmers are doing, what smart things farmers are doing to be able to deal with climate change. And that's what climate smart agriculture is about. And that's what we're here to see. So we're here to have fun, see that, and cut. But why I think I'm pointing out people? Because we are not in this fight by ourselves. Of course there's 4-H, but there are also some superheroes involved too. There's a character called Agriman. It's a superhero, agriculture superhero, a food production superhero. And Agriman is a cartoon character, is a superhero, is a comic book character, and I have in my possession 2 comic books to give to the school that was participating the most, right? They're right in the car there in Kenley's car, right? Every week I give out to each of the parishes, right? So I give it to the school, and the school can lend it to the students as they see fit. So Agriman is this superhero who is a food production superhero, and he has a female counterpart. Now, I'll give you $1 if you can tell me what's the name of the female counterpart. If Agriman is the male superhero.
Agriman?
Good try. But for once I catch you. The name of the female character, listen to this one, is photosynthesis. You know what photosynthesis is? You know what photosynthesis is?
Yes, sir.
Right. You know, it's all the teachers get first. All the teachers get first, is photosynthesis, right? So that's the female character. So we out here today, apart from having fun and getting snacks, is to talk about climate smart agriculture. And the only reason we're talking about climate smart agriculture is because there's something called climate change, yeah? Which is going to affect us and is already affecting us. Still with me? No? Right. But we still didn't talk about everything yet. No, I talk about 6. The big one that we didn't talk about yet is the extreme events. Now, you know when you watch sports on TV and say extreme BMX something, is always the most ridiculous thing. So an extreme event is like a hurricane. Tsunami, those kinds of things, right? But climate change is most associated with an extreme event that we know a lot about here in the Caribbean. And that is hurricanes, right? Hurricanes, right? Hurricanes, they're not easy, right? A hurricane is a serious thing, right? You all weren't alive then, but in 2004, when Ivan rocked through Grenada, it was, I mean, I could talk. I was here just about 3 weeks after, right? I was part of a mission. So I can tell you that, you see how you're accustomed seeing trees standing up and things? Big, hard trunk tree. They ain't just fall down. They fall down and they
fly.
They go free. They just 1 minute the tree here. Next minute the tree happen. 1 minute your roof.
They on top of your roof.
Your roof there on top of the house here, and next time you look for it. It did. You was here what? You can't be old enough. You wasn't here in 2004, man. Your parents tell you that, right? Somebody tell you that. No, but seriously, the extreme events are what we really have to worry about. So we know that there are going to be more hurricanes. We have seen it already, right? So of all the 6 things I tell you about, the sea level rise, the extra rain, the drought, etc., that one is the most extreme one. Because in the space of an hour or 2, you could lose everything, right? And that's why I call it extreme, right? Yeah. So how do you prepare agriculture that can deal with a hurricane? Is why we're out here today, having fun, waiting for your food, and talking about climate smart agriculture, right? So I hope I was able, in a few minutes, all these things you hear people talking about on TV and thinking about climate smart and climate change and global warming, with the help of my two friends here, my three friends here, right? We were able to explain that like nobody's business. So next time somebody tell you about global warming, tell them, I know all about that. That's the same greenhouse effect because you have these greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and so. And the reason why we have more of it is because we are using fuels more than we were using before. How do you produce in the midst of global warming? How do you produce in the midst of climate change? That's what climate smart agriculture is about, right? And we have to see some ways in which you adapt to those changes. In the same way that some plants could grow by the sea because they adapted to the soil. In the same way, we have to now produce plants and animals that can survive those temperatures. Now, as we're talking about plants and animals, if we deal with animals, we can talk about the chickens across. Anybody wants to tell me whether those are layers or broilers? Anybody know the difference? What's the difference between a layer and a broiler? A layer is just to lay eggs, and a broiler is just a broiler. A broiler is to broil, a broiler is to cook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the time you're ready to cook them layers, you have to call them X layers. You know what I mean? You all know what I mean? By the time you're ready to cook a layer, it's all hard already, right? You know how you cook a hard chicken, right? Let me see if anybody here really bright. Tell me how you cook a very, very hard chicken, especially if you don't have a pressure cooker.
You roast it.
You roast it?
Yes.
No. How you stew it? You have to put a nail in the pot. You never knew that? You see, a teacher has something, including the teachers. I'm sure you never hear that. You put a nail in the pot. Yes, an ordinary iron nail.
Yeah.
And you cook the chicken, and then you keep checking. When the nail gets off, the chicken will That's the only way to cook an egg there, right? If you want to keep your teeth. The only way to cook an egg there is you put a nail in the pot and you keep boiling and stew. When the nail's off, you know chicken right. Yeah, but seriously. So as a climate smart operation, here are some of the things that you want to include. Hear this. When you buy feed, this is the main point. When you buy feed, you are actually involved in the whole climate change rigmarole. Because a lot of energy was used to produce these feeds. They had a manufacturing process that used fuels. And by the way, the fuels that we're talking about is something called fossil fuels. How much people have had a ban from it? I think I end up talking to just me alone. Because everybody are talking to here right now. Yeah, of course, fossil fuels are those fuels that we had to take out of the like coal, like oil and gas.
They have to get until they heat oil and they have to make up coal.
I already had to talk to the Minister of Education, you know. We had to go back, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it 2 pints of paint. And we go around to all them primary school and paint. Put that last of consider and put secondary. Because you can't be in primary school still. You can't be in primary school. Yeah, exactly. So all of these feeds and things would have been made with
Coal.
the manufacturing processes, right? So when you have a climate smart operation, you want to use less of these and less fertilizers, less fertilizer that come in the bag, you know, like 12, 17, 2 and your NPK. We will come to that soon, right? But you want to use less of those, not just imported, but manufactured processes, right? Manufactured process. And use more local. So like when we go to see the plants, you'll hear people talking more about compost, right? So instead of buying fertilizer, they're using more compost, right? They're using more pen manure, right? All of that, right? So that's where the climate smart kit. And you see that this is the product from the on those chickens out there.
Pounds of it.
Right? I mean, exactly. You listen that one? Exactly. Right. So that is exactly what we were talking about, right? It's eggs we talking about. Yeah. So
Population of more children.
here's another climate smart thing. Because we know people. Because we know that it is hotter these days, you have to design your pens a little different. You may get away with it here because you're at a higher elevation, it might be cooler. But if you're running the same type of operation down the flat, it might be too warm for the chicken, for the layers. And you'll find that the laying will drop off. In other words, they won't lay as often as much eggs as before. Everybody knew that? Alright, okay. I working for my lunch, but I still working for my lunch. So I will continue, right? So one of the climate smart operations would be to design the pen differently. Either higher, because if you make it high, no, it can't make it low. If you make it higher, then you have more air flowing through, so it becomes a lot cooler, especially in the hot days. Because remember, even though you may not be feeling it up here in the hills, not only are the days hotter, the nights are hotter too. As a rule. Not this December and this January. Kind of anomaly. But generally the nights are just as hot as, well, not just as hot, but hotter than before. Almost as hot as before. Okay, so the reason why we came here was to avoid the rain so we could talk about the chickens as we hear, right? So you have climate smart operations. You have to use the correct breed of layers, right? There are layers that are better adapted to our conditions than some of the others, right? So whether it's a Rhode Island Red, right? Cornish, you have to, as the farmer, you have to know which birds are adapted to our conditions. Right? Not just in terms of the temperature, but remember we talk about all these diseases and things that are floating around. The major one being why we have this mask, right? Because we know that virus particles can be blown about, right? That is why we all have our masks. Those of us who are not talking right now have our mask on because we don't want to be spreading the virus, right? So our climate smart operations will take into account all of these things that we just talked about and what the farmer is doing to protect his crops or his animals from it. So I think we should take advantage of the little lull in the rain and just quickly go up and let the farmer explain the terracing and thing up there. Yeah?
My name is Anthony James, 25-year-old ambitious young Grenadian, patriotic Grenadian. And knowing the background of my history, I know that agriculture has been the routine and the growth of my little Grenada, even before its independence. And true hardship and true tough life is not only about the hustle, it's about the love for what you do. And as you can see here, I have a small variety of crops, and which I show them a lot of love. Don't mind you see the little bush, it is all because of the rain. Gentle touch of God's joy. At the back here, I have peppers, lettuce, a fresh born growth of cabbage and lettuce. At the front, cabbage, and I have a blossom, almost ready, small cut of pak choy. At the other side, because as you can see, Rolling Stone gather no mass, the quarters. At the other side, I have okras. They are small, tender, infants in stage. And I have cabbage and cucumbers. They are all infants in stage. And as you can see, it's a portion as we watch the top of the soil, you see a lot of stone. So let me tell you how the thing goes.
Right. Good.
Cut my bamboos from a nice distance. Measure them, get a transport to bring them. I pre-fork the soil, I bring rotten stuff from trees, I utilize the full feces where you all just come out and see children, people. I utilize it when it is properly decomposed to its children wouldn't harm my plants. The preparation of the ground is quite difficult because really and truly I'm a Walker Texas Ranger, I'm a Lone Ranger. And with the grace of God and to the strength that He gave me, I built those beds. I border them with the bamboo, I use some glory cedar pickets, and I build them. Get my soil properly organized with the pen manual and the decomposed rotten tree soil, and I get it groomed, and then I plant. But remember, specific crops have specific spacing and span for planting. As you can see, my lettuce, they are more closer, my pak choi, they are more closer than the cabbages. Cabbages need space to let themselves wide to balance the food. You know how the thing go? Old school thumbs. And coming down to the back, this is a test results of cucumber. Now I wanted to really see what is the growth span from hatching to making a vine and giving me a fruit. And these cucumbers here, they are only 7 weeks old. They started giving me little vines, and the rain started washing off the blossom. And in the rain, I gave them a small feed of white seed. My boss called it urea, but I just give everything its own name, white seed. So when it give, right now I have blossom, and I don't want to touch it and watch it too much. Over here, this is a blessing from my girlfriend. This right here, it is okra. I was given some okra seed from someone, you know, a very good elder that cared about me. And I gave my girl to plant it. I said, you're the one to bring the test results. So you see, all how you turn. My guys, love and respect the females, you know the part of what is going on.
So much for Texas Lone Ranger.
Yes.
I didn't know Lone Ranger were talking.
A Lone Ranger always have a lover on the side, you know, Walker had his wife. And right now, I am quite surprised to see that they are so short and they are giving me blossom of fruiting. Most important after everything, silence for a little while. The mother's womb. This is the mother's womb. This is where I hatch my plants. I have a pak choi. I have some cabbages. And I also have a rare box of lettuce in a mixed variety of plants to get into the soil in a timing to come when I harvest the crops that your eyesights are seeing. Mother womb. Mother womb is one of the most important things even into the life of a child or even into the life of a plant. A seedling must be hatched to get something. And as you all would know, there is nowhere that you can get nothing from nothing. You put the seedlings, you get your seedlings, you fill the trays with soil. You give them a finger touch, because underneath the trays, there are holes. And when you give in your seedlings moisture, you don't want your seeds to get out. So you make sure that the tray pot inside is properly packed. And then you place your seeds into them. Well, really and truly, if you want, sometimes according to the ground that you have, you want a certain amount of seedlings. So in every potting hole of the tray, you can put 1 seed if you desire, or you can also put 2 seeds if you desire. In my seedling trays, I put 2 seeds or 3 seeds. 1 seed never as desired because backup is always important. After A is B, I learned the ABC as a child. So you see, this is like just a little more than half tray, and it is so clustered because they are properly ready for the soil. So within the next 5 days, young seedlings, I'll be putting them down here. So, anybody have any questions? Anybody have anything specific that they want to relate?
Let me ask a question. What happened? Did anybody ever try to plant here without the terraces? Because what he just did there, he made terraces like steps, right? Tell them why exactly you had to do that. Because it may not be obvious that if you try to do it without that, all your plants will end up somewhere.
Well,
go break.
the reason for the trackings, as you see, is to save the molding of your soil in it. So, because if you don't do that, your plants will be falling with the soil.
Yep. Every rain, every bit of rain.
So this is an important question that you raise. Yes, you must do those things. Because really and truly, the first crop that I planted here was corn. And sometimes I just sit down and try to open the third eye. So I say, if I plant the corn deep and the roots go deep, I'll get the stone to raise. And that happened. When I was getting rid of the corn trees, the stones were coming above the soil due to the spread of the roots. Right. So I made a proper change in the soil. And then I did this.
Wow.
Excellent.
Very innovative.
Excellent, excellent.
You see, sometimes you have to open the brain. Not everything is going to be told to you. Not everything you're going to learn over Google, even self, that broad browser, that computerized thing. You see upstairs here? Yeah. Once you can calculate it upstairs, you forget that thing in your hand.
I also said that I had this superhero that I was going to tell you about, Agriman and photosynthesis, and that I'll give this. This is a first edition of, there are only about 2,000 of these printed. This Agriman is a food production superhero. He's helping 4-Hers all over the world, started in Trinidad, all over the world, to be more productive. And it's an entire series, it's a cartoon. It's soon going to be a movie in Tyler Perry Studios, but that's a longer way off. Agriman is a genuine character in the sense that there's an individual who puts on the suit, goes to schools in Trinidad and in Barbados, and he's been to Holland, Kenya, and somewhere else in Europe, right? So that this Agriman character is a big deal. I'm going to give this to the school my man goes to, whoever is the teacher from this school, where the very first person to ask a question was from, right? You're going to keep it in the school library. I was telling you that this is a first edition. There are only about 2,000 of these done. If you don't, well, you probably wouldn't be able to see from here, but this is gloss, huh? Somebody called Alpha Senon, one of my students. Yeah, right? So this was in 2012. In the 12 or thereabouts, right? And it's all connected to something called Wi-Fi. The cool thing about Agriman is that Agriman is not only a comic book character or a cartoon. You can go online and check some of the issues as well, right? The first edition was sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates. That's how big it was. If you notice, the quality of the paper is on glossy paper. Some of the early issues, right? Nowadays it's on less glossy paper. What I was telling you about, for those of you who are into comic books, since there are only 2,000 or so of these, in the next 10 to 15 years or so, these are going to be worth a lot of money if you understand how comic books operate. But the less you have, the more rare it becomes.
Yeah.
So as I'm saying, who is the teacher? Which school is it? Oh, okay. So I want to present you this. Keep it in the library. You can send it to the kids as a time. This is Agriman issue number 1. This is the
different school.
Okay, but remember you're the first person that, right? But the thing is that we are going to be able to give more of the books in the second round, right? In the second round we have the issue 3. So this is the original issue. This is 1.5, which is a bonus issue, and there's an issue 2, which I'm giving out in the second. Remember, coming back to St. John and St. Mark again, 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks from today, right?
Excuse me, can you give me the name of the other book, Agriman, and what is the other one?
Oh no, the female character is called photosynthesis. as in photosynthesis, yeah, photosynthesis stuff, right? But as I said, when we go around doing the and agribot, what is called agribot? Yeah, what? Agribot, robot, agribot. I mean, it's a really interesting series, as I said, but you can follow it online as well. When I do the video and get around to the rest of the kids.
My name is Josiah Joseph. I'm 10 years old, and and the school I go to is Bonnet Government School. I learned that before you plant, you have to terrorize the soil to make beds, because if you don't do that, when the rain falls, the soil and the plants will go downhill. Climate change happens like when I burn fossil fuel and it goes up into the air, causing a ball of gas around the earth. When the sun shines down on the earth, the carbon dioxide keeping the heat on the earth, causing climate change and droughts and